In this tutorial, we're going to be walking through creating a relationship-based survey in a fair bit of detail. So what you see here is the Polinode application, and right now we're on the in the networks module. So we're going to go to the surveys module just by clicking on surveys. And we're going to be creating a survey from scratch. So we're actually going to be creating our standard enterprise and partner template survey from scratch. So I'm just going to hit new survey, and I'm going to call this survey tutorial, like so, and just hit create. And immediately we are taken to the survey details screen, and there are a number of different steps. And these are the same steps that if you ever want to kind of edit your survey, once it's live, you can come in and edit questions and the lists and so on. So it's the same place where we both create and edit and manage the survey. And the first step here is the survey details. So the default here is that the status is collecting. You can, we recommend once the survey is finished collecting, that you change the status to completed. And if you want to pause the collection and take the survey offline, you can change it to offline here. So with quite a few of these inputs, you'll be able to hover over these information icons and read a little bit more about what these different inputs are all about. But we don't need to change this. We'll leave it on collecting because we're going to be collecting some responses pretty soon. And next is the survey name. So this is the survey name that we just entered. Again, we can edit it here if we want to edit it later. This name won't be visible to respondents. It's just for you to know what this survey represents and help you manage multiple surveys if you have multiple surveys in your account. And here you have the ability to upload an optional image. So when you're in the survey list view or the card view where we were previously, if you want to add an image associated with the survey on those cards, this is where you would do it. But we're not going to upload an image for this survey, and we're just going to hit next to take us to the next screen here. We could alternatively just click on the next screen, so you can either navigate by clicking these different items on the left-hand side drawer, or just by clicking the next here. And here we see the welcome message. So this is the welcome message that respondents will see when they first click the link that they will receive to take the survey. So respondents to surveys in Polinode don't need Polinode accounts. They generally will just receive a unique link via email that they click, and then the first thing that they see when they click that is this welcome message. So you can customize this welcome message. This is the standard welcome message that just says welcome and then the full name of the respondent. Please click next to start the survey. Not full name. Please ensure you use your own unique link to complete the survey. So the full name here will be replaced by the full name of the respondent that we'll be uploading shortly in the respondent list. You can also use first name here and have that replaced by the first name if you like. And wherever you see this kind of bold, italics, H1, H2 for headers and so on, this is where we support rich text. So you can change this to bold, for example, or unbolded or italics. You can even add links, upload images and so on. So, but we're just going to leave this as the default welcome message, and we'll click next. And here is really the heart of the survey creation. So this is where we are going to be creating questions. You don't always have to create a survey from scratch. You can use the duplicate button back in that kind of list view to duplicate our standard template survey or to duplicate another survey that you've previously created. But in this tutorial, I wanted to walk you through actually creating a survey from scratch. And the survey that we're going to be creating from scratch is actually our standard template survey. So I actually have the text for those questions just over here in this other window. And so I'm just going to be copying and pasting this question text. There's about 8 questions here. They are a range of different relationship questions as well as a couple of non-relationship questions. And I'll just talk through the questions that we're asking and how we create them in Polinode in this questions section of the survey creation. So first I'm just going to copy this introduction text in like so, and now I'll move back to creating the questions. And you can see here that we've got 3 options: new question, page break, descriptive text. So new question will give us any of these question types: a text box question, a numeric question, a numeric slider question, a multiple choice question, a matrix selection question, and a search and select question. So we can add questions, any of these question types in just by clicking them there. We can also add page breaks wherever we want, so then there'll be a new page inserted wherever we insert a page break. And finally, we have descriptive text. So this is where you want to add some explanatory text or some instructions or anything that's not actually a question. Now, we actually want to start off with that because we're going to be adding this kind of introductory text that we just saw. So I'm just going to hit descriptive text, and immediately we have this input for that descriptive text, and you'll recognize that this is the rich text format that we can use. And I'm just going to paste in an unformatted way the text that I just copied from the document that we just saw. And here I'm going to make this introduction. Let's make this a heading 2 just to make it a little bit larger. And now our introduction says, welcome to the company network mapping survey. Of course, you can change this with the name of the company and so on. This survey asks 8 questions regarding collaboration and your working relationships at the company. We are conducting this survey in order to help us identify opportunities for productive collaboration across the company and also to help us drive positive change across the organization. The questions in this survey ask you to nominate some of your colleagues, fellow employees, and then we just got some bullet points. So we're just going to reformat these as rich text bullet points. So I'll just remove the bullet points that came across from that Word document like so. And I'm just going to change this into bullet points just like this. Okay, and we'll just read some of the signposting or instructions that we're providing here. So to identify an employee, start typing their name and select the individual from the list. The name of all company employees as of the start of June. You can replace this with more recent dates. You can, of course, customize these instructions as you like. Are available for selection with preferred first and last names used. Non-employees, for example, contract workers, are beyond the scope of the survey and are not included in the drop-down list. If you cannot find an employee starting with their first name, please try searching by their last name. You may select the same person for multiple questions. You may leave a response blank if you feel that question is not relevant for you, or if there's no one that you feel it is appropriate to select for that question. Now, we will often not compel a response for a relationship question, but in some situations you might want to make a response compulsory, but these instructions are designed for the relationship questions to be non-compulsory. So we'll just hit finish, and now we have our descriptive text. We can always see our survey coming together at any time just by clicking this preview button, and here we can see the welcome message, and we can see this descriptive text. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is let's put a page break in. So we can either add questions at the bottom just using these buttons, or page breaks or descriptive text, or just hit this plus icon here, and likewise we could add new questions or page breaks or descriptive text. So I'm just going to hit page break here, and we've got the page break. And now I know that my next question is going to be a search and select question. So this is the most common type of name generator question for relationship-based surveys, i.e. active organizational network analysis surveys that Polinode is really designed to collect that kind of data. So we will often start with a search and select question to ask a name generator question to start off with. So I'm going to click search and select, and now we're able to copy the text from our search and select question, which I'll just kind of walk you through. So here, I'll just copy this text in. paste it in an unformatted way. And here we're asking, please identify up to 20 people at the company who are important to your ability to accomplish your work priorities. So I'm going to make this bold just to ensure that it stands out. And then we have a little bit more context around this question. So these may be people who you talk to often, or they may be people that you talk to more infrequently but on specific matters. Please include people that have specific expertise that you rely on to do your job or who provide you with important information or resources. The people that you nominate should be the people who you consider to be the most important relationships for your work. Please be sure to consider both people in your immediate team as well as people outside of your team. You do not need to nominate a full 20 people. A larger network is not necessarily a better network. So this is our general name generator question, designed to collect the most important working relationships for the respondents to our Active Organizational Network Analysis survey. Now, by default, questions in Polinode will be relationship questions. So this means we're collecting relationship or network data. We can hover over this. We just tells us a little bit about this toggle. Now, all the question types can be toggled so that they're not relationship questions, in which case they would be standard survey questions, like where you're asking demographic data or open text questions, and we'll see an example of that. But this is a relationship question, so we'll leave it toggled as a relationship question. We then have the option of making the response to this required or not. And as I mentioned previously, we are not going to make it compulsory for respondents to respond to the relationship questions in this survey. So we're going to leave required as no. Additional names here. This is some more advanced functionality that you can use if you're running an unbounded survey. So if you have an unbounded network where you might not necessarily know all the potential people that the respondents could nominate. Now, wherever you do have the names, so we often do have all the names of people in a company or a division where we're running an organizational network analysis, we generally want to include all of those names and then not turn additional names on, because it just means that our data is cleaner and it's easier to collect. But if you do actually have an unbounded network situation, you can toggle additional names on, and then the respondents will have the ability to add additional names to the respondent list or supplementary list that you're using for this question. Which brings us to the source of relationships. So whenever you are asking a relationship question, the source of relationships can either be the respondent list, which is the easiest to explain. This is where, say, we have 100 respondents that we're sending this survey out to. Those 100 respondents, when they're answering this question, can nominate any of the other 99 respondents. So the respondent list is the list of names or the pick list that people can choose from for this relationship question. The other option is a supplementary list. So this is a little bit more advanced, and we're actually going to be showing an example of this a little bit later. This is where we have something more general than the respondent list. So it's most commonly used for a superset or subset of the respondent list. So for example, suppose we're running an active organizational network analysis for a division, but we don't want to limit the division to just being able to select relationships internally in that division. We can use a supplementary list that contains the whole organization. So suppose there are 100 people in the division, but 1,000 people in the organization. The respondent list would be 100 people. The supplementary list would be the 1,000 people in the organization. And that's an example where the supplementary list would be a superset of the respondent list. Now, a supplementary list actually doesn't have to be people. It doesn't have to relate to the respondent list at all. It's wherever you want to ask a more general relationship question. So it can be abstract things like systems that people use or values that they aspire to. It's a very general way of asking relationship questions. And then the third option here that's disabled for this particular question, because it's the first relationship question in the survey, is answer to earlier relationship questions. So this allows us to pipe the responses from previous relationship questions into subsequent relationship questions to drill in and kind of understand the nature, the strength of relationships. So we'll be seeing an example of that pretty soon. but for the moment, we're just going to have this as a respondent list, and this tells us that the answer options will come from the respondent list. And question abbreviations. So we're going to use a question abbreviation for this question of work priorities, because that's what we're asking about. Who helps you accomplish your work priorities. Now, the question abbreviation gets used if it's a relationship question and you generate a series of networks once you've collected the data. The name of the generated network for this question will include this question abbreviation. Now, if this is not a relationship question, then the question abbreviation will be used for the attribute on the node that relates to this question. So, for example, if you're asking about gender and it's not a relationship question, and you include gender as your question abbreviation, then the resulting node attribute that represents the collected data of gender will be called gender. So that's how the question abbreviation gets used. And then we optionally can enter a minimum number of selections. So this is where we would enforce a minimum number of selections from the respondent. Here we don't want to enforce a minimum number of selections, but we expressly mentioned that they can identify up to 20 people at the company. So we're going to enforce a maximum number of selections of 20. And then we'll just hit finish. And now we've created that first search and select question. Now you don't have to have page breaks between each question. You can have multiple questions on a single page if you like, but I'm going to put another page break in here, and I'll actually put page breaks in between all of the questions in this template survey. And now the next question that I'm going to create, I know it's going to be a matrix question. So I'm just going to hit matrix selection here to create this matrix selection question. And then we'll go back to my text here and we'll have a look at what I'm asking. So I'll copy this question text across, copy it in, and I'll make this bold. And this question is asking, please indicate whether greater access to the people that you nominated in question 1 would help you be more effective at work. So you probably already understand that because we're asking about the people that this respondent would have nominated in question 1, that we're talking about question piping here. So this is going to be an example of piping responses from question 1 into this second question here. And yes, indeed, it's going to be a relationship question. And we're going to make it required because this is a piped question, and although it's not required to nominate anyone for question 1, once people are nominated, we want to make sure that for each row in this matrix, you do that a response is required. Multiple selection, so we're asking about greater access, and so we don't want the respondents to be able to select multiple options. We just want them to select one option for each row. So we're not going to select multiple selection here. And the source of relationships is the answer to earlier relationship question. So we're going to hook this up to question 1 so that we're going to pipe the responses from question 1 into this subsequent question that is asking about greater access. And what options are we going to give the respondents for greater access? Well, we already have those options in my Word document here. So the first option is I do not need more access. So I'm just going to copy that across, put it as my first column heading. The second option is greater access would be nice, but is not critical. So I'm going to copy that across, put it as option 2. And the third option is greater access is critical. I'll make that option 3. Now, if we wanted to add more options in here, we would just hit this add option button like so. And that's how we can add more options. And we're going to have a question abbreviation. Let's call this greater access. Like so. And I'll just hit finish to finish that question. And now I'll add a page break. And now my next question in here. The next question I know is going to be another matrix question, but a little bit different. So I'm going to select matrix question here, and then go back. And here I'm going to copy this text. And then copy it in. I'll just copy it in unformatted. And let's read through what we're asking in this next question. So this is what we call the KESI framework. And it's asking for each of the people that you nominated in question 1. So again, we're going to be using question piping. Please indicate whether they are a source of knowledge, energy, support, or innovation for you. And then we give a definition of each of knowledge, energy, support, and innovation. For example, knowledge, they provide you with information or expertise that helps you do your job. So let's just bold the first part of this question. And we're just going to make these rich text bullet points. Just like so. And then the last formatting thing we're going to do is let's just bold each of knowledge, energy, support, and innovation. Okay, so we've got the question text in there. This is also a relationship question, so we're going to leave that toggled on. We're not going to require responses here. So somebody might not be a source of any of knowledge, energy, support, or innovation. So we want to make sure that respondents can leave rows blank, which is why we're going to not make this a required question. And then somebody might be a source of, say, both knowledge and energy, or both energy and support. So we're going to allow multiple selections. So instead of radio buttons, we're going to have checkboxes for this question because we've selected multiple selections. And then we know that this is a question that we're piping into. So we just select answer to earlier relationship questions. And again, just hook it up to question 1 like so. And our column headings, well, we're asking about knowledge, energy, support, and innovation. So let's make our column headings knowledge, energy, support, and innovation. And our question abbreviation is KESI. And now we'll put another page break. And the next question that I'm going to ask about is actually going to be an example of a numeric slider question. So I'm going to insert a numeric slider question in here. And I'm going to go back to my text here. And I'm just going to copy this text and bring it across. And I'm just going to bold this and we'll read it together. So on a scale of 0 to 100, how comfortable are you initiating a conversation with each of the people that you nominated in question 1? So this is asking us, well, firstly, it's a piped question because, again, we're asking about the nominations in question 1. And it's asking us to, give an indication about the comfort that this individual has initiating a conversation with their previous nominations. And so the easiest way of collecting this information is as a numerical slider. And we'll have a look at what that looks like in a little bit. But this is a relationship question because we're piping from that question 1. And we're going to hook it up. So select answer to earlier relationship question, select question 1. And we're going to call this approachability. So what we're really asking about is approachability here. So we'll call this question approachability. The minimum value in our sliders that we're going to use for this question, well, yes, we'll make them 0 because we're asking on 0 to 100. Our maximum value, yes, let's leave it at 100. You could change it to 10 if you wanted to. You could change it to some other number. And then the minimum label, well, the default is minimum and the maximum label's default is maximum. But we're going to change this to, let's see what we've got here. So not comfortable as the minimum label, and very comfortable for the maximum label. Again, you can edit these as you like. The default value, so where should this slider start off? It's going to start in the middle at 50, and the increment. So each time I move it, how much can it move by? Well, that's the default is 1, and we'll leave it at 1. But if you change this to the maximum value to 10, you might want to change that increment to 0.1. So that's our numeric slider question. I'll hit finish on that. And I'll just add another page break in here. And now my next question, it's actually going to be another search and select question. So now we're going to move away from question piping, And we're going to ask a search and select question, which is not going to be bounded by the responses that I made in that first question. So we're no longer piping, it's a fresh name generator question or a fresh search and select question. So let's have a look at the text in this question. So who do you think sets the tone for how things really get done at the company? So copy that across. And we have a little bit more text here as well. So let's copy this text across as well. And I'll just bold the first part of this question to make it stand out. So we're asking, who do you think sets the tone for how things really get done at the company? You may select up to 5 people. And the helper text here is, please be sure to think of people at all levels of the organization, including people more junior than you and at the same level as you. You may select anyone in the organization, including people that you have previously nominated. So for this question, we don't want to restrict people to their most important working relationships from question 1. We want to allow them to nominate anybody at all. So yes, it's a relationship question. We're not going to make it required. We're not going to turn additional names on for this question, but the source of relationships will be the respondent list so that they can nominate anybody in that respondent list. And the question abbreviation, we'll call this sets the tone. The minimum number of selections, we're not going to enforce a minimum number of selections. The maximum number of selections, we said they can select up to 5 people, so we'll enforce that maximum number of selections. And then I'll just hit finish, like so. And now I'll put another page break in, and then I'm going to have another search and select question. And this search and select question we've got here, I'll bring this text across and we'll again have a look at it together. Just bold the first part. And here we're asking, please identify up to 5 people at the company who provide you with career-related advice and assistance. So here we're asking about career-related advice and assistance. And we say, please consider people who are formal or informal mentors or are sounding boards when you need or wish to discuss your career. You may select anyone in the organization, including people that you have previously nominated. And this is, of course, a relationship question. We won't make it required. We won't allow the addition of more names. The source of relationships is going to be a respondent list, so we don't want to restrict the nominations in any way. We'll make that a respondent list. And the question abbreviation here, let's call this career, because we're asking about career-related advice and assistance. We won't enter a minimum number of selections, and again, we're going to limit people to 5 selections for this question. I've just hit finish, and now I'll put another page break in. And now we've got an example of a couple of non-relationship questions. So we have a couple of open text questions. So I'm just going to hit text box here. And now I go back to my Word document and I'll copy this text across. And we're asking, think about how your organization collaborates and communicates. What is working well? So I'll bold that. And then a little bit of helper text. You may want to think about formal and informal opportunities for collaboration and communication, as well as the tools that you use. And this is not a relationship question. We're not asking about the relationships that this individual has. We're just asking them to fill in some open text response. So we're going to toggle the relationship question off, like so. And also we want this question to be optional. So we're not going to require a response. So we'll leave required off. And here we'll say the abbreviation is working well. And I'll just hit finish. And then for my last question, put a page break before it. And then it's going to be another open text question, like so. Bring that in, bold the first part of that question, and here we're asking, think about how your organization collaborates and communicates, what's not working well and what would you like to change. You may want to think about formal and informal opportunities for collaboration and communication, as well as the tools that you use and any barriers that may exist. So again, this is not going to be a relationship question. We're not going to require a response, and we're going to call this like to change as the abbreviation. So you can, of course, have matrix style non-relationship questions You can have multiple choice questions, which is one question type that we're not seeing here. So we've looked at text box. We haven't looked at numeric. So numeric allows you to collect a number from the respondent. Numeric slider we've looked at. Multiple choice just presents the respondent with a list of choices. This can also be a very helpful relationship question for smaller lists where it presents all the names that the respondent can then have a look at in a single list. Matrix selection, search and select. So all of these question types can equally be non-relationship questions if you want them to be. So I'm just going to hit finish. And now that question has been added. And remember I said we can preview this if we want. So I'll just go to preview. And here we see that welcome message. We see the introduction. We'll hit next to take us to the next page. Here we see our search and select question. So a respondent can just start typing names like this and then select like so. And then they can clear and they can add another name like this and select. And they can very easily unselect anybody that they've added just by toggling to see all of the selected. Of course, with just the 5 example respondents, it's very easy to see everybody that's been selected and easily unselect. But with larger lists, because Polinode will handle thousands or tens of thousands of names, you'll find it easy to just see who's selected in that longer list by toggling that selected there. And then we'll hit next. And here we've got the first question that we're piping into about greater access. And here we've got our KESI framework, knowledge, energy, support, and innovation. So we can say example respondent 1 is a source of knowledge and support. Example respondent 2 is a source of energy. And here we've got our numerical slider question that's asking about approachability. And here we have our fresh search and select question, which is asking about how things really get done at the company. And now our other fresh search and select question, which is asking about career-related advice and assistance. And finally, our 2 open text questions. And that's the preview of the survey that we've just created with those 8 questions. Next, we'll have a look at the completion message. So when the respondent hits submit, this is the message that they'll see. So thank you, your response has been successfully submitted. Now you can edit this. Again, you can add images, you can add bold, italics text, whatever you like, but we're just going to leave the standard completion message in here. You also optionally can redirect on completion to another link. So if you want to redirect the respondent once they've hit submit to another link, you can do that in here by toggling this on and then putting that URL that you want to redirect to there. And then there's another kind of slightly more advanced option where Polinode can actually send a post to a URL, so called a webhook, every time a response is submitted. So we can notify you immediately when a response is submitted with the ID of that respondent. This is helpful if you want to do relatively advanced things like immediately create a report for that respondent and email it to them. But we can notify you on completion via that webhook. So again, a bit of a more advanced option there. And here we see the lists. So whenever you create a survey like this, it's going to just have those 5 example respondents. But we want to create our own respondent list. So we've actually prepared some data that has some simulated names, and I'm going to show you how to create that respondent list. Just before I do that, I'll just skip ahead slightly just so you can see the responses here. So this is where you can manage the responses and edit and enter responses on behalf of respondents and so on, and see the status. And here we can see our 5 example respondents. I just wanted to show that to you before we upload our list. And the first thing that you want to do before you upload a respondent list is you always want to download the current list. So I'm just going to download this list like so. And I'll have a look at what this list looks like. So I'll open this list up. So it's going to be called Survey Tutorial. So here's the list that I just opened up. And what you'll see is we've got the name of the respondents, our example respondents. We have the email of those respondents. Now, first name is blank, but we're going to be adding a first name. And then we have the ID. So Polinode gives you these columns from here. So the ID of the respondents, their status. So we haven't sent anything. We haven't sent the launch email to them yet. The unique response URL, and also this data that's available to you once people start submitting responses. So the time they started, the time they submitted, the time to complete, and also the time that they were last emailed. So I want to replace these respondents with some new respondents. So I'm just going to delete all of this data like so. And I actually have, like I mentioned, some simulated names. So let me just open up my master list file like so. And what I've done here is just simulated some names in this name column and simulated some emails as well. And I've got some first names. And because I want to show you an example of creating a supplementary list as well, I have this kind of master file here, which imagine this is everybody in an organization. But like I mentioned before, sometimes we only want to send out the list to a subset of the organization. So we've got 50 people here that are actually the respondents and should be in the respondent list, and everybody else in this list we're going to use to create this supplementary list, which is going to be a superset of our respondent list. So I'm just going to take this data for our respondents, so the name, email, and first name data, like so. I'll just select it, and I'm going to copy this, and I am going to go back to my quick start survey. My survey tutorial like so, and I'm just going to paste this data in for my respondent list. So this is the essential data that you need: the name of the respondents, the email of the respondents, and the first name. Now, first name is optional. If you leave it blank and you use first name in the survey, Polinode will take the first word, so the first word before the first space in the name column as the first name. But I've included first name here. The other important thing to note about the respondent list is that you can actually add as many additional columns as you like in here that contain demographic data on your respondents or other data. So you can attach attributes to your respondents. So typically it's things like the division that they might be in, the function, their role title, their tenure, their gender, and so on. And so you can add as many of those additional columns in here with those attributes as you like. I'm not going to do that in this example, but generally you'll want to include HRS demographic data attached to your respondents in this respondent list, and you should do so. So I'm just going to hit save, like so. And now I'm back where my respondent list upload is. And so I'm just going to click update list now. And of course, if you want to see a template of what the respondent list can look like, you can download the template here. But remember, always just start by downloading the list, editing it, and then updating the list. The respondent list is never edited in incremental fashion. You always want to upload the full list, whether you've just added one row or deleted one row, whatever the case might be. So I'm just going to hit update list here. And I'm going to select this survey tutorial. This is the name of my respondent list that I've just created. And Polinode tells me that that respondent list has been updated and 50 respondent credits have been used. So the respondent credits in Polinode get used whenever you upload a respondent list with more than 10 respondents, and Polinode will tell you how many respondent credits you've been used. So this is the point that the respondent credits are used. So now if I go to responses, you can see here's a list of these 50 respondents. So Polinode tells me I've got 50 respondents, and here their names are. The other thing that you'll see here is a supplementary list. So remember, we've spoken about supplementary lists in Polinode and how they can be used and how they're very general. What I want to do with this survey is actually change it a little bit to show you an example of using a supplementary list for a superset of my respondent population. So I'm actually going to create a new list based on that master list that you saw, that is a supplementary list that contains, imagine, everybody in this organization. So I'm just going to go back to that master list. And I'm going to just create, I'm going to save this as a new file called all employees. Like so. And I'm going to make a supplementary list out of this. Now, with a supplementary list, the only compulsory column is the name column here. So you don't need emails, and we won't need the first name, and we won't need the respondent list. Now, when you're doing this, so creating this supplementary list as a kind of a superset of your respondent list, it's always very helpful to start from this kind of master list, because you want to make sure that the names in your respondent list match the names in your supplementary list where there is overlap. So by starting with the same list, we're ensuring that, because Polinode will match the names in the two lists for the same survey where the names are identical. So I'm just going to delete the other columns that I have here, like so. I'm going to save this as all employees, and then I'm going to go back to Polinode surveys. I'm going to create a new supplementary list based on this all employees list, like so. And now I've uploaded this list. Now I haven't actually linked this list up to any questions yet, but if I want to, I can change the name of the list here by hitting this edit icon. I can download this supplementary list by clicking download. I can replace it then, so make some edits by clicking this upload button, or I can delete it here. And I can add multiple supplementary lists, so a survey can use multiple supplementary lists. Now what I'm going to do is just go back to my questions here, and rather than each of these questions linking up to the respondent list, I'm going to change them so they link to this broader supplementary list. So I just hit edit now, and I'm going to change it. So click supplementary list here, and click all employees, that list that I uploaded, and then click finish. And then I actually don't need to change question 2, question 3, or question 4, because they're all piping from that question 1. But I do need to change question 5 in the same way. And I also need to change question 6 in the same way. And now if we go back to that preview, I won't go through the whole survey, but you'll see we've got a much longer list that we can select from here. We've got that supplementary list with quite a large number of names in here, even though we have the 50 respondents. So that's how we can manage respondent lists, manage supplementary lists, hook questions up to supplementary lists. Let's have a look at some of the advanced options here. So sometimes you might be running an active O&A, so a relationship-based survey in Polinode, where respondents might not have email addresses. And so there's some advanced options in Polinode with this single link functionality. This single link functionality allows you to create a single link here, where instead of using the email distribution, you can distribute the survey via this single link functionality. And then there are some other options here that are a little bit more advanced, and I'd encourage you to read the documentation on this at docs.polinode.com, where you can configure certain things, like you can add a limit to the number of respondents that can take this survey from that single link. You can either allow or disallow the the open sign up of respondents to that link. So here we have identification is required for the respondents to take the survey. And then you can configure what identifying information they need to enter into that single link. So the default here is email address. So they need to enter their name, which needs to match a name here in your respondent list. And then they need to enter an email that matches the email in your respondent list in order to take the survey. But again, if they don't have email, you want to change this identifying information to an attribute that you add to your respondent list, which might be something like employee ID. So you can change that configuration here. And then name auto completion just lets you determine whether or not when somebody goes to that single link, they start typing their name, will it autocomplete to a name in their respondent list. So these are the advanced options to use a single link for the collection. But most of the time people will have emails, and most of the time you'll want to use the email distribution functionality, which we're going to talk about on the very next link here. So here's the email distribution. You use this for sending the launch emails as well as sending follow-up emails. So generally you want to send like 3 or 4 follow-up emails for a survey typically. You know, the most active organizational network analysis surveys, that's pretty typical. And you send follow-up emails as well as the launch emails by status. So here we just need to select the status of the respondents in order to send them an email. So if we want to send the launch out, we're going to send people, we want to send this out to people whose status is not sent. So we haven't sent this email communication out to them yet. So I'll just select not sent. You can see we now have selected all 50 of the respondents. Now, if you want to send reminder emails, you typically want to select not started and started. So everybody that you've sent it out to, but that hasn't submitted yet. So that's how you can send reminder emails. We also have submitted as a status in case you ever want to use it. And this start status is a special status that you can use. You can star people, and we'll see how to do that under responses, and then send a specific email to, like a custom group of people that you've selected. And then we also have a bounce status. So sometimes some of your emails might bounce, and then you can select, you can change people's emails and then select them by the status of previously bounced to resend email out to them. But we're just going to send the launch email. So we're going to select people by the not sent status. You can change the from name of the survey. So the default will be the name of the owner of the survey. So here it's my name. And then you can change the email subject if you like. We'll leave it as the default. You can customize this message body. So the content of the email that you're sending out to people. We're just going to leave it as the the default in our survey. But I'll just kind of sign my name here down the bottom. You can change this with using rich text. You can also toggle this to HTML, and you can actually input your own custom HTML email that can include logos or headers or anything that you like if you want to send out your own custom HTML email. But we're just going to send this out to people that are not sent. Oh, and the other important point is you can send a test email to yourself or others. So if I send this test email out, I could put my email address in here, and I can send a test email to myself or to other people in my organization or a client organization, so that they can basically take this survey without actually having to submit a response. And then when you're ready, you just hit email survey here, and you click this send email button, and then everybody with this status will receive the email. So that's how you send the launch email out. And again, it's the same place, but different statuses to send the follow-up emails. So that's how we would send the launch email. And then the last item here is responses. So here we have a dashboard that tells you how many respondents there are in the survey, how many of those respondents have submitted, what that means in terms of a response rate, and any bounced email addresses. If I've sent and received a bounced email, this will tell me that. Now I can search by name or email for individual respondents. So here I can search for Bethany, for example, and I'll immediately get Bethany up. You can also click on any of these names in order to be taken immediately to their response. So we'll do that in a second. And we can also manually edit the status of respondents. So the status of respondents will automatically update as they submit the response, or they bounce, or they progress. But if you want to, you can, for example, reopen a survey response by clicking on here, and suppose it's already submitted, you can change it back to started, or you can change it to a special status, which is opted out, if you want to note a respondent has opted out of the survey like that. So that's where you can manually edit individual statuses. It's also possible to edit the status of respondents in bulk by using the status column in the respondent list. So you would download the respondent list, make edits to that status, and then re-upload that respondent list, and it's possible to edit respondents in bulk in that way. So now what I want to do is just go to Barrett here, and I'm just going to simulate actually taking this survey as Barrett. So I won't go through this in too much detail because we already created the survey, but here I'm just going to make a couple of selections as Barrett, some selections for the knowledge, energy, support, and innovation, some indications for this relationship strength around approachability, which will be available as weights on the edges in the generated networks, and then a couple of other selections for my other two search and select questions, and finally some inputs for my open text questions. And then I've submitted. And now I'll just go back to this survey, just so we can see now that we have a time and date for when Barrett submitted their response. Of course, we submitted on behalf of Barrett, but still we have that time and date of the submission, and Barrett's status has changed to submitted. You can also change this so we can filter by status very easily, see everybody of a particular status. You can change the sort from the default of name to either the submitted date or status, and you can change the order as well. And optionally, you can clear all the responses, and we can page through these responses too. So that's how one can create a survey, and also we've submitted a response on behalf of an individual in that survey as well. Now we'll just hit this back button and just talk a little bit more about this kind of surveys list view. So here, this is the survey that we had. If we click on this, we can see we have a few options. So we mentioned this previously, but you can easily duplicate an existing survey. So if I hit duplicate here, it's going to create a new survey with the same questions and all of the defaults except for the respondent list. It'll clear that respondent list out, but that easily allows me to duplicate an existing survey and run it with another team, another division, another organization, and so on. We can also use manage users here to give a user access to this survey. So I'm going to add a user in here. I actually know that in my organization, I have this user called Jane Citizen that I've created. So I'm going to do a quick lookup using her email. It tells us that Jane Citizen was found. She's a member of demo organization. Now, if she's a member of multiple organizations, there'll be a drop down here where you can select which organization you want to give her access under. And then also we can determine whether we give her edit permission to this survey or just view permission, and whether she can give other users access or not, and whether she can remove other users or not. So we're going to give her full permissions to the survey. Just hit add user. And now she is shown here as a user who has access to the survey. You can also do that in bulk with this upload users. The next thing I'll show you is this generate networks menu item. So once you've finished collecting the survey, you typically will want to change this status to completed, like so. And now you can see that our survey is completed. And then you've got a couple of options. So our first option here is to generate the networks. So we click Generate Networks, and now we can generate all of the networks, in which case we'll get a network for each relationship question in the survey, or we can generate networks for individual questions here. So this is shown with the abbreviations of those questions. We're going to generate all the networks for the survey. So I'm just going to hit Generate like so. And now it's told me that Polinode's generating the networks for that survey. And let's actually have a look at them. So they are then available to us under Networks here. So now we can see under Networks, it gives us the name of our survey, survey tutorial, and then the abbreviation, career, sets the tone, approachability, and so on. So if we jump into this work priorities network, we actually have all of the respondents in here, even though we only submitted one response. And we have, here we've got Barrett and just those two nominations that we made for Barrett. Of course, with a larger survey with more nominations, you will get a much more fulsome network, but I just wanted to show you how you can move very quickly to generating the resulting networks. And then hit back, and of course you can view our detailed tutorial or our quick start guide on all the network analysis functionality that is available once you've generated those networks. And the other option you have is you can export to Excel. So if we export this data to Excel, it will then be available to us as a single Excel workbook that contains a tab that has nodes, and that nodes tab will contain everything from your respondent list, your supplementary lists, as well as all the non-relationship question data in that nodes tab. And then you'll have a tab for each relationship question containing the nominations and any edge attributes associated with those nominations on that relationship question tab. So all the raw data is available to you in Excel. And if you, well, once you're done with your survey, you can of course delete it if you want, or you can archive this survey. So let me show you an example of archiving it. Here I've archived this survey, and this means that I can look at just my kind of currently active surveys if I want. But if I want to look at my archived surveys, I can toggle this, and now I can see this is my archived survey, and I can unarchive it if I like. And I can, like I said, delete it if I want to remove all the data, and immediately then all of your data will be removed from Polinode if you click this delete button and confirm. The other way of managing surveys too is you see this little box up the top left. This allows you to make changes to multiple surveys. So if we select multiple surveys like this, we can archive multiple surveys at the same time or delete multiple surveys at the same time. And of course, we can search for surveys by name, just like that. And we can change the way that our surveys are presented to us by name or by the time that they were last modified. So that concludes this surveys tutorial.